As you can see, we've got our internet back up, which is great. For those of you who have not attended one of our virtual plant clinics before, this is a webinar format Zoom, so we can't actually see you or hear you on this class. So if you have questions, if you are on Zoom, use the Q&A box on your menu bar to type those questions in. If you're on Facebook, I'm going to be monitoring those comments during the class, and I'll be able to feed those to David when he's able to take questions. If you have any questions following up after the class, if you're on Zoom, you could hit reply to your confirmation email. If you're on Facebook, send us a message, or better yet, go to our website and hit the contact us button, and that sends an email to my colleague who I work closely with. We'll get you connected to the right places. So for fall lawn care, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to David, who is one of our lawn care experts. So David, thanks for covering this topic today.
Excellent. Glad to be here, and good to see everybody at the virtual plant clinic today. As Sal mentioned, we're going to discuss the fall lawn care. As I guess businessman John Scully was credited with saying, timing in life is everything. And that couldn't be any more truthful than it is in gardening, and especially when it comes in regards to lawns. So if you need to do renovation, restoration, seeding, repair, any of these kind of things with your lawn, September is the month for doing that. So that's why we are presenting the topic here. So I'm going to cover all that in detail today. And as Sal mentioned, please send all your questions in here. I really like to take this as a more conversational approach. But you look around the area, and right now lawns are in pretty good shape. We did okay this summer. A lot of times we come out of the summer with hot, dry conditions, and lawns are just all beat up. They're thin, they're bare, they're worn, full of weeds kind of thing. This year, we had some pretty tough conditions in July, but August came around. We've had above average rainfall in August, and that's kind of saved the day. So everybody's situation is different, and we'll be looking at that throughout here. So with that, I think I'm just going to go ahead and get started with the slides and share a few ideas on this. So the first thing I feel that we need to do is really set clear expectations and goals for what we expect out of the lawn. Lawns have become a little bit controversial. I say almost like everything we talk about seems these days. But with lawns, it is an artificial system where we're maintaining kind of a ground cover there that requires inputs of mowing, watering, fertilizing, pesticide use. But all of this is really driven by what your goals and expectation are for the lawn. This is what I use as an example of a very low input type of grass. This big open lawn area is down Green Spring Gardens Park and sort of the Fairfax Alexandria part of the county. And this is the horticultural center for the park authority. So it's surrounded with beautiful display gardens, good educational outreach. As you come into that to welcome you, we do have a big open area, but this lawn, the only management it gets, the only input it gets is it is mowed as needed. They don't fertilize it, they don't water it, they don't really do anything other than keep it mowed down as a nice open surface. And again, this is all driven by your expectations. When you walk up close on there and you start looking at, it is a mix of all different kinds of grasses. There's weeds in there, so it's not a consistent, uniform sort of classic look. But it works beautifully in this environment. It serves its purpose where there's area for people to sit, to picnic, to play on. And this is one of the things that turf grass, of course, offers you that other plants cannot, because it grows from a crown at the ground level. It grows up, it's adapted to grazing animals, it's adapted to fire, is adapted to mowing. So it gives us a surface that we can run and play on, and it's very utilitarian type of ground cover. But it really comes down, like I said, to what type of lawn you are looking for. If I look at this lawn, this is much higher input type of grass. You can see it's beautiful dark green throughout there, very consistent and uniform in its color, its texture, its density. If you expect to maintain a lawn like this, then you're obviously just going to need to put more time, money, effort into it, watering during dry spells, fertilizing to provide nutrients, managing to keep the weeds under control, and so on. So these are personal decisions and judgments that you're going to make. I'm going to lay out for you a lawn care program of what you can do to get a lawn that looks like this, that is dense, that's full, and very nice in its appearance. But you will need to decide yourself, each one of us individually, where you fall on the spectrum. And so everybody's situation is different, and everybody needs to adapt the lawn care program and practices to what their circumstances are, and keep that in mind as we go through. And again, that's why I love to take questions and everything so that we can kind of meet your individual needs. So I will start this off. I've got a video that's going to give us what we call our 5 steps to fall lawn care. This will give us an outline of the 5 steps that are involved, and then we'll follow up with more discussion in detail.
Thank you for joining me today to talk about fall lawn care. Just to get started, let's recognize that our lawns are cool season grasses. What this means is their ideal growing conditions run at about 50 to 75 degrees. And so when it's cool like this and we're getting ample rainfall, your lawn is lush and gorgeous and everything looks beautiful. But as the temperatures start to creep up and we move into the summer months and we're looking at 85, 90, 95 degrees, this puts a lot of stress and strain on the lawn. It slows down, it loses vigors, thin areas start to develop, weeds start to move into it. And it's not unusual by late summer to look back and say, wow, my gorgeous lawn suddenly turned into a lawn that's half lawn, half weeds, and has thin and bare spots. But the good news is all this can be fixed, and fall is the best time of the year to do that. As the days get shorter, temperatures get cooler, this is the ideal time because roots are growing and developing. So I'm going to go through a 5-step process with you today that we're using to restore the lawn. Now this can vary for everybody. The exact steps that you take, you might have to modify and adjust and adapt to your situation. But as we look at this lawn here today, it's thinned out, some bare spots have developed, soil has eroded, some weeds have moved in, and so I'm going to take several steps to restore this and get it back into good condition. The first thing that I'm going to do is have this area core aerated. The aerator is a machine that goes through and it loosens the soil, it alleviates the compaction by creating these channels for air and water to get in there. This also allows roots to grow in there and develop. And after doing the aeration, we're going to come in and spread some topsoil. As I said, we lost some topsoil through erosion, so that needs to be replaced. And it's also going to help to replenish and restore the soil that's here. Once the soil's been prepared, we move on to our next step, which will be fertilizing. Now, Merrifield Garden Center, we custom blend 2 different lawn foods, Merrifield Premium and Merrifield Select. Merrifield Select is a starter fertilizer. It contains the phosphorus that new grass and new seedlings need to germinate and really get their roots established. So that's what we're using today. After doing our soil preparation and the fertilizer, we'll move on to our next step, which is putting the grass seed down. Again, Merrifield Garden Center, we custom blend 3 different grass seed mixes for different environments in our region. Our most popular one, and the one that we're using today, is the Merrifield Tough Play. This is a tall fescue mix. It's got the best heat and drought tolerance and does well in full sun, but it also tolerates a fair amount of shade, kind of anywhere from about 4 hours of sun to full all-day sun. If you're in a situation where maybe you only get 1 or 2 or 3 hours of sunlight, at that point we might get better results with the Merrifield Shady. And then we also offer a Kentucky Bluegrass blend that's in our Merrifield Sunny mix. That's a beautiful, gorgeous, lush lawn, but it does require a little more care and attention than the Tough Play does. So after you've done all this work and you feel like you've done a hard day's work and ready to put your feet up, I'm here to tell you we're not done. There's one more step. This is a process, and it takes time for your lawn to grow in. So my 5th step is watering. I'm going to water this area for about 5 minutes every day, just enough to keep the soil damp and moist, because it's going to take about 1 to 2 weeks for this grass seed to germinate and start growing in. And then about 4 weeks out, you'll really start to look like a lawn. And at that point, we'll come back in, we reassess conditions, we'll be applying the Merrifield Premium, and I'm hoping that you'll join us as we go through an update and give you results on the progress that we've made with this project.
And let's see, go back here. We've got one slide I want to show you. Excellent. So this is to reiterate some of the comments I was making in that video. We live right in this transition zone in Virginia. What that means is you go further north, you go up into Pennsylvania, New York, and so on, the northern tier. In that environment, with the cooler temperatures and hopefully dry or wet conditions, that's where our cool season grasses thrive. So the fescues, the bluegrasses, perennial ryegrass, a lot of the turf grasses that really do best in this sort of 50 to 75 degree temperature range with consistent moisture will thrive in that environment. If you travel further down south, if you're down the southern tier of the states along the Gulf Coast under hot conditions, we're generally growing warm season grasses, things like Bermuda grass, St. Augustine grass, centipede grass, and so on. Where we live, right in between these extremes here in Virginia, Northern Virginia, this is where we can grow either warm season or cool season grasses, or as Dr. Goatley from Virginia Tech, he's our state turf specialist, would say, hey, we can grow 8 different kinds of grasses, but we can't grow any of them well. So this is a really challenging region for us to grow this turf in, which is why I say we really need to take advantage of this time of year of cooling temperatures where we get closer to that sort of 50, 75 degree temperature range. We've had the moisture. These are the ideal growing conditions. So again, Virginia Tech, if you need to seed your lawn, will tell us anywhere from about August 15 to October 15 is our window of opportunity. The sweet spot right in there is September, which is right now. So I just encourage you, if you are going to make these improvements of seeding, fertilizing, and so on, let's try to get it done this month if we really can. Another thing that happens, we were talking about particularly like the tough clay. This is the tall fescue mix. I said that most of our clients utilize, and it's the best choice in our region because of the cool season grasses. This has the deepest root development. It's the most heat and drought tolerant, and it will grow from 4 hours of sunlight to full all day sun. So this is the grass that's going to work for most of us. And if you happen to be in a shade condition, I'd like to say there really are no shade loving grasses, no such thing. But this is a shade mixture that will grow in that sort of 2 to 3 hours of sun as an option. It's a little bit slower growing, not as vigorous as what's in the tough clay, but it is more sustainable. And the other thing that we do with our grass seed mixes that I like to emphasize, it really is a regional mix. There are, for example, with tall fescue, 175 different varieties of tall fescue in the marketplace today. I call these just different flavors of the same species of plant. So when you go out shopping, none of us would know one from the other. So what we do is we rely on the research results that come out of University of Maryland and Virginia Tech through the USDA and these things. All these are trialed, they're tested, they're evaluated over a period of years. And those that go in the top tier rating, they what we call category 1. We work with a seed grower out in Oregon, and we have this grass seed packaged to our specifications using varieties that performed in our region, and they're blended for these specific environments. So I really don't think there's anybody can touch the quality of the grass seed that we offer. The other is, again, overseeding your lawn. If you have good thick density, you've got nice turf and you don't necessarily need to overseed, then it can be skipped. But a lot of us do that frequently just to maintain the density and fill in bare spots. The other thing I want to talk about real quickly, and then we'll kind of open this up to questions, is going to be on the fertilizer. So this kind of reflects the things that we're talking about. Try to think of this in terms of number of fertilizers. So or applications. If I'm going for a low input lawn where I just sort of want to do the minimal amount of input into it and maintenance, it's important that we maintain a thick, dense stand of cover on the ground that helps to prevent erosion, slow the loss of soil and the runoff of nutrients and water off our property. So it is important that we take good care of it. But if I'm on this low range, what I'm saying is I can fertilize my lawn once in October. And if I'm just doing that routine kind of maintenance, I'd probably make an application of Merrifield Premium and call that sufficient. What we're really, most of our customers, what we advise that we're trying to get you to this medium level where I'll fertilize in September with the Merrifield Premium, and I'll come back and fertilize again in October with the Merrifield Premium. And then I might choose to catch up with a light application in spring. If I'm on the high end of the program, I'm what I want to call my better home and garden look. You know, I take a lot of pride in this. I really want to get the prettiest, densest, fullest, darkest green lawn I possibly can. We could fertilize in September, October, and November. But these levels are really based on your expectation. It's not really a question of what's in the best health of the plant or the best health of your lawn. You can fertilize your lawn 1, 2, or 3 times this fall, really based on what your goals and objectives are. We do, like I said, try to get people to go towards maybe, twice in the fall, the Merrifield Premium, just as a good starting point. So those are the basics of what I'm suggesting you might want to do this fall. Let's stop, see if we have any questions. And then later, depending on how we budget our time, we can talk a little bit about some weeds and insects.
Thanks, David. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on questions. We'll start with ones that talk about the process of working on the lawn that David's discussed. So we'll hold anything on weeds, like you said, David, until later. So to start, do you have any thoughts on liquid aeration and dethatching?
Did you say liquid aeration?
Yes, that's what's in the comment. I have not heard of that before.
So to me, there's that might mean 2 things. There is actually an aerator that takes water under very high pressure and uses water to go down and open the soil. That's a real expensive commercial grade operation. It's everything I've seen is just really fantastic, but it's way out of the reach for most homeowners as far as the costs go. Now, the other that you might be talking about is there are materials, wetting agents that you spray on the lawn. They break up the surface tension of the soil and allow water to penetrate easier and more deeply into the soil. Those, I know, I'm kind of wishy-washy on that. I don't really think there's much need for it in our climate. And if you do, they're of sort of limited value. So depending exactly what you mean, that was it. Dethatching, again, what will happen on turf grass over time, you start to develop on top of the soil sometimes this layer of rhizomes and stems and crown tissue that doesn't decompose readily. A 1/2-inch layer of thatch is actually beneficial. It serves the same purpose as mulch would in your flower bed or landscape bed. Over a long period of time, it can become excessive to where you get to about a 1-inch thick layer. That becomes a problem. So most of our lawns, it's not a real issue, but if that thatch does get to be excessive, dethatching is a machine that goes through, scratches it all up, breaks it off, then you have to collect it and dispose of it. It's a very good, worthwhile practice. I'm full on board encouraging you with it. My hesitation on it, and you can tell it's there, is because I just have these god-awful memories of doing this for a living. It turns up a ridiculous amount of debris. It's a pretty big undertaking. So I only do it if I really have to. If I'm at like a 1/2-inch layer of thatch, I'm going to live with that. If I get to 1 inch or more, you definitely should undertake it. One other thing, and then I'll get our next question, is core aeration is a machine that goes through, it punches holes in the soil, and it brings these little plugs of soil to the surface with it. What we found is when you aerate your lawn, it does break up the thatch layer. It mixes soil, cultivates and brings soil up to the surface. The bacteria and the fungi in the soil help to enhance the breakdown and decomposition of thatch. So I'm a big fan of core aeration as a way to cultivate the ground, manage the thatch in a more natural way, and it's a heck of a lot easier than dethatching. So you can kind of sort all that out to what works best for you.
Thanks, David. And the next question is a bit of a follow-up on that. For aeration and fertilizing, you mentioned the core aeration tool. What are the basic tools you would need besides that for aeration and fertilization?
So core aeration, we showed that in the video. That's actually a machine. There's a power aerator machine that goes through and pulls these plugs and cultivates the soil. That can be done provided by a lawn service. You can rent the equipment, and I would again do that sort of on larger properties. If we're talking 1,000 square feet or more, which is not big in the lawn area, you might want to look into that. The machine itself is thousands of dollars, so you're not going to buy it. There is a hand tool, a hand aerator that you can use on the same thing. You literally step on it, kind of like you would a shovel, to do the aeration by hand, which is good for smaller areas, say 1,000 square feet or under. But on larger lawns, that becomes really tedious. So you'd said for aerating, I think you said top dressing.
Yeah, fertilizing. Actually.
Yeah, fertilizing, that's done with a spreader. I just brought, for show and tell, this is a little hand spreader. Again, for small properties, you just put it here, and this can distribute in a uniform pattern. But again, people have, say, a 5,000 square foot lawn, or really anything much over a couple thousand square feet. There are also spreaders that you use to push it around. I do prefer what they call a rotary or broadcast spreader. It spins around. I don't know if you probably can't see this, but it spins around and it flails the fertilizer. And this could be fertilizer, it could be grass seed. You use this for all these different materials. It just distributes it uniformly. A lot of you know I've got a little townhouse lawn with maybe 100 square feet of grass. I just spread it out by hand. I sprinkle it out and try to make it as uniform as I can. I don't own any of this kind of equipment.
Thanks, David. If people have sprinkler systems in their lawns, does that cause an issue with aeration that people should?
Oh yeah, it does. You better, if you're having a service or anybody aerate the lawn, or if you take this yourself, you definitely need to mark where your irrigation heads. You need to go out and put flags or markers that's really obvious, because if that aerator hits the sprinkler head, it's going to destroy it, and then you're going to have those repairs. So you absolutely want to know where your sprinkler heads are and clearly identify them before you bring any equipment on the lot.
Thanks, David. Okay, next question is, so this person says, my turf is a mess. Does Merrifield have a lawn service department?
No, we don't. What we do is now we sell the products like I'm doing here. We'll be your garden coach. We'll kind of walk you through the whole process step by step, tell you what you need, have everything that you need available. Through our landscape department, we can come in and we didn't mention this, but if you just want to do total do-over, we can give you estimates, come in, get rid of the old grass, cultivate, regrade, bring soil and get it correct, and put sod in place. Sod is where you are buying grass that's already 1 year old. So when you put it down, it's insto presto. It establishes much faster, great results. It's the best way to really establish your lawn, but your cost goes way up. So that becomes more of a financial decision whether you want to do it from seed or sod. We, like I said, do our landscape services, we could absolutely give you an estimate for redoing it completely, but we don't have a maintenance service. Like if you need somebody who's going to come out and maintain it for you throughout the year, that's a little beyond our scope of our services.
All right, thanks, David. Next question, moving on to a few questions about fertilizing and nutrients. What are your thoughts on using soil microbes to nurture the lawn?
Absolutely, the soil microbes in there, that it's essentially bacteria in the soil that make the nutrients available to the plants. When we're, for example, when we're fertilizing our lawn, really that fertilizer is being, we're essentially in a way feeding the microbes in the soil, and the soils are cycling that material back to the plants. They're the ones that bacteria and fungi are decomposing the organic matter that builds our soil structure. Absolutely big believer in it. Now, I think the best way to do this is by top dressing your lawn. Not everybody does this because, again, the top dressing is another step forward in time, money, and labor that's in there. But we showed in that video how in the ideal situation, if I aerate the lawn and I seed it, I fertilize it, I love to put a top dressing material over it. And that's building and improving our soil structure by adding organic matter, which essentially is adding bacteria and fungi and fueling that whole soil food web. A lot of the organic fertilizers now are being supplemented with specific beneficial bacteria. Hey, that's a good thing, but in what I've seen it, that just by itself, it's kind of like just a drop in the bucket. You know, if you really want to make a noticeable, significant impact, and I'd much rather top dress the whole lawn with compost.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you, David. Next question. Can you seed and fertilize on the same day?
Yes, you can, and I actually recommend that. Now, you do want to make sure that that fertilizer is specifically labeled for seeding your lawn. The Merrifield Select is our house blend on a starter fertilizer. It's 50% slow release, which means that it's not going to burn, damage, or injure the young seedlings. And it has phosphorus in it, that middle number, which does aid in the germination and establishment of the new seed. So we just want to make sure you use the right fertilizer, and that's actually good. It will improve your results.
Thanks, David. All right, let's discuss, if you can, for a minute, top dressing. We've got a few questions coming in about what that is, whether or not it's beneficial. I know you mentioned compost, top dressing with that. So can you discuss that a little bit?
Right. Top dressing is a practice that we use throughout gardening to basically improve the condition of the soil. And we're saying healthy plants depend on a good, healthy soil. So top dressing in its purest sense is just coming in with some type of soil amendment and putting it over top of the existing ground. That material that you can use can vary. You get professional turf, golf course, sand-based greens. They might be using a mix of sand and peat. In home lawns, generally we are recommending either what's called McGill's compost. McGill's is composted yard and food waste that's enriched with composted biosolids. So those biosolids, again, that comes out of the treatment plant. It's a waste product. So it does make, it smells bad. I don't know I'm trying to find the polite words here. It's smelly, and some people are a little bit uncomfortable using it because it is human waste coming out of a treatment plant. But it has all been processed, tested by the EPA, and the lawns really love the additional nutrient enrichment that provides. Another one that is very popular is people use, it's called leaf grow. Leaf grow is composted yard waste. So it's grass clippings, leaves, branches, all this stuff has been shred up, completely organic, natural. It's adding a lot of beneficial organic matter back into the soil. It's not as nutrient dense as the McGill's is. So it's going to be one of those two, depending again on your situation. We recommend it's 1 cubic yard per 1,000 square feet. So that's 1 cubic yard per 1,000 square feet. That comes out to about 3/8 of an inch thick. So it's just a very thin layer, but it's a little bit, it's enough to go in there and build and improve the soil. You can put it right over top of your existing grass, over top of the grass seed, and it's just a thin layer so it doesn't smother, suffocate, or cause any kind of problems like that.
Perfect. Thank you, David. We do still have some questions coming in about seeding and fertilizing, but we're having a lot coming in about timing of weed control products and other sorts of things. Do you want to discuss weeds a little bit or keep?
Yes, because I try to keep this really short, but I knew this is always the confusing part. So let's just talk about that for a split second. So here's the thing. In the big picture of things, there's always exceptions, but in the big picture of things, I can do either my weed control or my seeding. We can't really do both. They're not compatible with each other. So we had done a question and answer session. This was Jackie sent in. This might be exactly what you're getting at, saying, hey, my lawn is chock full of clover and crabgrass. Should we use the weed and feed stuff? Will it really preserve what grass there is? Should we proceed to overseed it afterwards? That's the issue a lot of us are facing. So a couple things to think about. Just because she had asked about the weed and feed, I want to be clear that the sprays are a little more effective than the granular products. So we're talking about going in and spraying with a weed killer. But if I go in and I spray with a weed killer, most of these products have anywhere from a 2-week to a 4-week waiting time before I can do my seeding. So here we are on September 9, I think it is. I could go out there, do my weed control, make sure I'm using one that allows me, maybe I could come in as quickly as 2 weeks later and I could still get my seeding done before the end of the month. So it is possible, but for the most part, I feel like right now we've had this beautiful weather. We've had good rainfall. We've had cooler temperatures here this past week, and it looks good in the next week ahead. Myself, I would rather put a priority on getting my new grass established, doing my seeding and my fertilizing, and we can deal with the weeds another day. But that's, again, these are choices. It's not right or wrong. A lot of the weeds that you see today, things like crabgrass, stilt grass, spurge, lespedeza, these are all what are called summer annual weeds. What that means is that they are present in your lawn today. When we get some freezing temperatures, they're going to die anyway. So if I go out and I start treating these weeds now, that's going to delay everything by 2 weeks. If I do nothing, those weeds are probably going to be dead 6 weeks from now anyway. So it's one or the other. Just be aware. We'll have a conversation, more detail at the garden center, and help you get down to the specifics of it based on what your need is. But it's a good question, and everybody's got to make a decision based on the density of weeds, condition of their lawn, all these other things. What's the best route for you to go? All right.
Started talking. Thankfully, it reminded me I'm muted. Thank you so much for that. So can you discuss, so for people who have winter weeds, is weed control, like killing summer weeds, is that the same as going in for winter weeds? Is the process the same or is it different?
No, right now is also the time you would put a preventer down for winter weeds. So if we talk about weeds like chickweed, henbit, dead nettle, bittercress, these are winter weeds. Guess what? They start to germinate now in September. They begin sprouting in September through October, November, and all these weeds suddenly appear in your lawn next spring. And you're like, where did these things come from? Most of the weed preventers will also inhibit or prevent your grass seed from growing. So again, the general consensus is, no, it's one or the other. We're going to do our weed control or our seeding. But, and this is what I'm trying to be really clear so we don't cause problems out there. This one I'm saying there is an exception. This it's a Scott's product, and it comes a couple different sizes, but they make a product and we have it for sale. It's called Scott's Step 1 for seeding, or they have it in a small bag that does 1,000 square feet, and it calls, what are they calling it? Turf Builder Triple Action, built for seeding. This actually, it's a starter fertilizer mixed with a weed preventer that you can use at the same time as seeding. So you can, if we have this, a specialty product, it's the only one that works like this, you can seed your lawn and put down something to prevent winter weeds at the same time. But it's critical that we get you the right product. So I feel better if you speak to us at the store, but the answer is yes, it's here. It's made by Scott's. It does cost a little more than your typical products that are out there. But if you have a history of winter weeds and you want to seed, we can help you out, but we'll fill you in all the details at the store.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I will definitely reiterate to everybody before we start taking more questions. If you guys want to follow up, every lawn, I think, David, you probably say this, every lawn's different, but David is at the plant clinic. We have people at the plant clinic who can help you with your specific needs at any time, or you can email us if you want to get really into more deep discussion of your specific lawn. So
thank you for saying that, because I'm always nervous. I'm sharing these suggestions and stuff, but you can really mess it up too if you put down the wrong product. So that's why we're doing this kind of over the internet. I want to confirm everything with you in person.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so back to questions about weeds. We have questions about some specific weeds. So I'm going to start with the more general questions about weed control in general. And then if we have time, we'll get to the specific types of weeds. If you're putting down, if you're mowing, do you need to wait an amount of time before putting down weed killer? Does mowing affect that at all?
Yes, it does. What will happen is most of these weed killers, they're absorbed through the leaf surface. So the more leaf surface we have, the better coverage we get and the better results you will receive from it. So it's best to actually, if your lawn has been growing and it's the grass is up a little bit, the weeds are up a little bit, you do your weed application, let that sit there ideally for about 24 hours, then you mow it. If you go out and let's say you mow your lawn first, now you've just removed leaf surface, there's less coverage, less absorption, less effective. So yeah, basically I'm going to say spray first and then mow. You know, if you do mow, if you just had your lawn mowed, like I've got the HOA mows my lawn, they were out there today, they mowed it. So I would wait 3 to 5 days before I applied any weed killer, because you want to make sure the weeds are actually, the bigger, the more robust, the healthier the weeds are, the better the weed killer works.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know. If you don't want to have to bother with the weeds, but you want to seed, can you just seed over the weeds? Is that possible at any point, or do you have to deal with them?
No, you don't have to deal with them. You can just seed in the existing grass. Now, okay. when our goal is that we want to get good soil seed contact. We want that seed to sort of fall through the grass canopy and actually contact the soil for good germination. So I do like to go through, and if there's bare spots, I'll rake that out with a hand rake, just kind of comb it out so that I get some of the weeds out. Maybe I get better soil seed contact. That's an advantage to where if we do aerate the lawn ahead of time, we get better soil seed contact. So sometimes I do like to do a little bit of prep work, but it's not absolutely critical.
Okay, excellent. All righty. Let's see. I'm checking to see if we've got anything else here on general questions for weeds. Okay, here's a question for seed that I'm going to go back after this, and then we'll start asking questions about specific weeds. How much seed, when you have bare spots or large beds, about how much seed do you need to be applying? Are there directions on the bag, or is that they're kind of a general rule for that?
We really wrestled with that issue. There's actually a tendency of people to overdo it with seed. If you think about this with, for example, tall fescue, when it comes up, I get one tiny skinny little grass blade. It's not much thicker than a human hair, but then it's going to produce another leaf and another leaf and another leaf, and they kind of grow like a little clump. So the way we like to say it is, hey, the grass, it needs a little bit of elbow room to expand, to fill in. A lot of times we're in a more is better kind of society, and I have people that want to put down excessive amounts of grass seed. And what happens, it all grows in and it comes in, and it's so dense and it's so tight, it doesn't have room to expand, and then it all collapses and dies. And I have these ridiculous conversations at the store with people where, you know, I noticed last Saturday, I'm working with a customer and I'm trying to get an idea of the area I have, the seeds they need, the coverage. And I'm like pulling a bag out of her hand and says, no, you don't get, one bag, just take one bag. You don't need 2 bags. And I'm like, the anti-salesman. But what we tried to do was on the back of our labels, we even gave you a reference. This might seem a little crazy. We wanted to give you some reference, and it might say, hey, if I'm overseeding and I've got a square inch, I need about 10 seeds per square inch. So we actually gave you some numbers to try to look at by it, but you want to actually see a little bit of distance between the seed, maybe a quarter inch or so, at least between them. Last thing you want to do is I've had people put seed down so heavily that it's almost like mulching their ground, where seeds on top of seed. Now, grass seed needs a little bit of room to spread out, and grass seed needs sunlight to germinate. It doesn't get buried deep in the ground. We want to keep it in that top quarter inch or so of soil. If it gets buried an inch down in the ground, it won't grow. It needs to be up near the surface. So don't bury it. Keep it up near the surface, just slightly covered. And we put the seeding rates, we put all the information in there. These things have been worked out through decades and evaluations at the university. There's no reason you need to go any heavier than what's on the label.
Is there a spreader setting, if you're using a spreader, that you can set it to that's generally pretty good?
We did not put spreader settings on there because every spreader manufacturer and every seed supplier, there's no standardization in these settings, and also it just drives you crazy. Okay. What I can tell you is, if you're using a broadcast spreader, it's going to be about a third of the way, a quarter to a third opening. It's a very small opening. Whether your spreader is labeled A, B, C, D or 10, 20, 30 or whatever the numbers, it's just about maybe a third of the way open, a small setting in there.
Got it. Okay, perfect. All right, on to weeds. Do you have any tips for Japanese stilt grass?
Japanese stilt grass is really not that difficult to manage. We have some products you can use to kill it now, and then do your seeding. It doesn't even interfere with your seeding. But the other is just to ignore it for now. When we get some freezing temperatures by November, let's say, the freezing temperatures kill the stilt grass. But the seed that's produced by that stilt grass carries over through the winter, and it will start growing next year. We can prevent that seed from germinating next year, but what's probably most important is it's going to take a couple applications. Your weed preventers most of them last for about 3 months. So if I put down an application in March and that covers me through April, May, June, then I need to reapply it before the end of June to get me through the July, August, September time period. A lot of people put down one application in spring, they don't do any follow-up, and then the stilt grass starts showing up later in their summer. Most of the things that work for crabgrass also work on stilt grass. Again, we can give you guidance on that, but it's something that's pretty easy to manage, but it's also, you'll never get rid of it. It becomes just one more thing on your to-do list. If you don't treat it, it'll just keep coming back and spreading.
All right, thanks, David. Do you have any suggestions for violets and creeping strawberry?
I do, and then after this, I want to just show real super quick a couple insect.
Sounds good. Yep. So last question, and then we'll go on to your last.
So violets and strawberries, definitely in what we call the hard to control list. There is no such thing as just a one and done. We're not going to be able to just squirt it and say, that's it. It's something, it is going to require some repeat application. So what I call kind of a battle of attrition. What has been giving us our very best results on both the strawberries and the violets is called Nutsedge Killer. A lot of you guys might know about nutsedge, yellow nutsedge. It looks like a grass, but it grows straight up and really fast in the hot summer months. It actually works quite well on some of these hard to control weeds. So violets, the very best time of the year to treat them is early spring, right about the time they start flowering. But if you wanted to get a jump start in that, you can do that now in this September, October, even early November time period. But I would use what's going to be labeled for nutsedge, or just called Nutsedge Killer. Real quick, because I know we're running out of time, I just wanted to touch on insects. I was not going to include this, but then I started getting lots of samples and lots of questions over the last couple of weeks. We had beginning, I'm going to say the end of August, maybe the third week of August, people coming into our clinic where literally over a period of like 3 days had these beautiful, gorgeous lawns that were looking nice. We'd had rainfall, cool temperatures, green lawns, and going to this condition just within a matter of days. Turns out this is the fall armyworm. I've seen this a lot of it's coming all over the internet, because thing is, we've never had this before, not in Northern Virginia. This is a common pest that occurs down in Florida and Georgia and South Carolina. It feeds on grasses. It's a caterpillar that eats, primarily on corn, but will also get into Bermuda grass, other turf grass. It's a grass eater. They have been seen in Southern Virginia, even Central Virginia. We had outbreaks back in 2018, but on all the years I've been doing this, I've never encountered this up here in Northern Virginia. Well, the current thinking is that this moth kind of hitched a ride on these tropical storms that have been coming up out of the Gulf Coast. They are strong flyers, but these storms have moved them up into our area, and now they're finding these outbreaks of fall armyworm occurring in Virginia, Maryland, even up into Ohio and further. So this has gotten a lot of attention because it's dramatic. This is the caterpillar. This is about the size and maturity they were at last week, and they just kind of chew right through your turf. It's a surface feeding insect that chews above ground. So last weekend, people started bringing in dead turf, but even on close examination, we were not finding the armyworms. The exact same pattern of damage is occurring in lawns now, also because of grubs. Grubs are the immature stage of the larvae of beetles, like the Japanese beetle. These feed below ground. The easiest way for you to know if you're suddenly losing defined areas or patches in your lawn, if the roots are intact, if it's kind of like the grass is still there but just chewed down to the ground, that's going to be armyworm. If you lift that grass up and it just peels up like a piece of carpeting with the roots eaten away, those are the white grubs. So both of these pests are active right now. The treatment for them is the same right now. Again, we can recommend some insecticides you can put down and just be a one-time treatment. But I wanted to put that out there not to be alarmist, and I'm not even saying you necessarily need to do anything. But if you are discovering patches showing up in your lawn, then you need to investigate, determine if we've got, cutworms or grubs, and stop by and see us. It's easily managed, but we'll tell you how to do that. It's just a one-time treatment.
All right. Thank you so much, David. We are out of time for today. So thank you all so much for joining us. I do have a couple of notes. If you did not get your question answered, or if you think of something later, if you are on Zoom, you can go to your confirmation email. You can hit reply. That goes directly to me, and I can give that information to David or whoever can answer your question. We'll get back in touch with you with some more information. If you're watching on Facebook, then you can either send us a message, or better really is to go to our website, hit the contact us button. You can email us through that, and that goes to one of my colleagues who actually helps set up. He's usually not visible in our webinars, but he's usually behind the scenes. So that goes to him, and we can all get you in touch with David. So just want to say a big thank you to everybody for attending today. David, thank you for being with us to discuss fall lawns for today's virtual plant clinic, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you in the next couple of weeks for our next plant clinic.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye.